Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fierce, Focused and Feminine podcast. I'm Davindra Ojala, the Lightworker Coach. I'm your host for today, and this is a space where I have real, raw, and naked conversations with fiercely heart-centered women, soulful leaders, and most courageous souls. Now, Fierce Focus Feminine is a soulful community and a sisterhood where we believe every woman deserves to know her true power, worth, and potential, and never have to live in fear of it. Beyond our collective fears, masks, and insecurities, each and every one of us has a unique gift and seed of potential within us. And our mission here at FFF is to really inspire you with transformational stories, to encourage you to follow that nudge, follow that gut intuition, step into your fears and start becoming the woman you were divinely created to be. So for today's show, I have a really special treat. So I want you to welcome an extremely grounded, courageous, heart-centered lady who's had huge transformation in her life and has an incredible story of transformation that I know is going to touch your heart, allow you to really touch that place of compassion and courage. So please welcome Bep Dhaliwal.
Oh, it's so lovely to be here. Thank you, Davindra, for the opportunity.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today, because I just know this is a real treat for everybody. And I've known you for quite some time, and your story has touched me so deeply, and seeing your transformation is just so inspiring. So thank you for taking this time to be with me.
Thank you.
So Bep Dhaliwal is the founder of Thrive 365. I love that name, by the way. A business that is grounded in connection, growth, and resilience through group coaching, one-to-one coaching, and workshops. Now, Bep believes that life presents you with so many gifts, some that break your heart wide open and challenge you more than you could ever imagine. But every one of them presents an opportunity to step up, stand tall, and be counted. Wow! What a statement! That is such an incredible statement, such an incredible statement. So there's so much I could take from that. But the first thing is the gifts. Absolutely, gifts. So Bep, what are the three biggest gifts you would say you have in your life today?
I think, and I will obviously, as we go through, touch upon elements of my story, but the three gifts I think I've received as a result of the challenges that I've been through are really around, they do center around connection, growth and resilience. The connection piece for me is so important in terms of how I think choose very carefully where my heart goes and who I open my heart to. And so the people in my life are people who give me the love and the joy and the challenge, actually, that enable me to continue to grow. And I think that's what, for me, the growth part is about taking all of these opportunities and thinking where I feel challenged, again, where is the gift in this? Like, what can I learn about myself and how can I grow? And then the resilience part of it is just knowing over the years, as more and more things have happened, it's never been a linear journey. And every one of those challenges has enabled me to stop, to ground myself, and then to get up and stand much taller and stand much more courageously. And that's where I think my link to resilience, or having walked, I want to walk my talk, you know, this has become my journey, that I've had a lot of knocks, like the majority, you know, so many people will have, but it's how you pick yourself up and how you move forward. And that's a very personal journey. But that, for me, I think having the right people around you, using these opportunities to grow and be resilient is what I think my three biggest gifts are.
Brilliant. Good. So let's just highlight that. So we've got resilience, connection, and the third
is growth.
It's growth. Okay. So I just want to honor this, because this is what I really truly love about Bep. Sometimes when I ask this question, the response I get back is gifts externally. And I think this really highlights how much transformation and inner work Bep has gone through herself in life, because the gifts which she shared are internal gifts. And that is so important, because so often we miss that gold, because that is the gold. That's the nuggets we're looking for. So thank you for diving straight in and sharing from a really deep place.
No, my pleasure.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so we're wide open. So I feel it's really safe to just dive in with you, Bep, here. We all go through challenges. We all go through struggles. And I'm going to invite you to be really naked and raw. What has been your biggest challenge that has knocked you sideways?
The biggest, I suppose, is the impact of cancer on my life. And it's not only that I've had it, my husband had it. I lost my dad to it last year. My mum's had it. But it was also the biggest gift in terms of how I've grown. So I suppose when when my husband got diagnosed with cancer in 2012, we'd only been married 18 months. It was my second marriage, so a bit older in life, and it has taken a long time to kind of get to that place. And so we, to have cancer then presented to us like 18 months in was just like the rug being pulled from under your feet. And we hadn't had any experience of cancer before, and so we didn't really know how to deal with it. And I just wanted to protect him and to look after him, and that was difficult actually as a family as well, because in terms of stepping into his family, and I didn't know all of them that well, how two different families come together to try and navigate a path where there is so much fear, so much challenge. There were so many lessons all the way through the journey. And so but we found our way through. I think it was one of those concepts or one of those areas in your life where you cling on to any level of strength that there is. So we had the most amazing, his hematologist, his consultant was brilliant, and he grounded us very quickly and made us feel safe, and he gave us as much reassurance as he could that he could help. And I think that really helped, just having somebody that could just anchor us. And so supporting him, my husband on his journey, and being a carer is really, really tough. The impact of cancer and the treatment is horrendous on the individual, but also the side effects, that then come out as well. Like, we were learning so much about each other, and just, our whole world was turned upside down, and I would never want to go through that journey again. But literally almost a year to the day after my husband was diagnosed, and we were on holiday celebrating the end of his cancer journey and him going back to work, I found a lump, just purely by chance. And and again at that point I was, oh gosh, like, is this really happening? But again, I know for myself now as well that when something big hits, I can sometimes go into denial.
Okay.
because I'm just not able to cope with it in the moment. And so whereas my husband was kind of freaking out a little bit, I actually just kind of put the block up and was like, no, we're on holiday, this is okay, we can manage this.
And is that something which you were conditioned to do with yourself? Was this the same, because you didn't go into denial with your husband? So just wondering, is that a personal thing to not feel safe to acknowledge your own pain and suffering over somebody else's?
It's interesting because I think this is also where the control piece comes in. And I think with Jazz, my husband, I felt like I needed to get some level of control. And maybe with me, I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know. So maybe you're right. Maybe it is that the denial piece for me. And also, I don't like being the center of attention. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was almost just batting away. And I think that is maybe something that has been conditioned, you know, from a young age. I'm the big sister. You know, I feel, having followed my dad's path, and he was the big brother, that we just look after everybody else. You know, our needs are secondary to what everybody else kind of needs around us. And so I think there was something about that piece that, no, I can't have the attention on me. You're still recovering. Let's focus on today. What can we do? And, you know, and all of that. So I think when we then did get the diagnosis, for me, again, I kind of went into, okay, like, let's just get into action mode. Like, what needs to happen? How do I schedule this? How do I control this? Yeah. How do I navigate through this? And I never, ever wanted to be, and I remember saying to some of my friends, I don't want to be defined as the girl who had cancer. So I was just like, this is going to be 1 year out of my life, and then that is it. This chapter is closed. So it's almost ironic now that I talk about this on a number of different platforms and stages, and I share my story, and I become a coach in resilience, because it's been, in a weird way, and people think it's strange when I say this, that it has enriched my life beyond belief. And the way in which I think it's enriched my life is because it made me realize that I mattered. I didn't realize that before. I had no concept of my value, my worth, my, you know, anything about my existence, really. It was almost like I was just here to serve others, which I still am so in touch with, in terms of serving and being there and helping other people, but in a very different way. Now I put myself first, and now I do fill my own cup first. Yes. And then I think about what else is left to help others, and how can I help others. And so so I kind of think there's been this real, and actually, when I was thinking about one of the key things about my business and the concept of my business, where I got to was to help people understand that they matter. Yeah. That's the core essence of it. Like, how can we, like, please let me help you recognize your value and your worth. Because when you're aware of that, the light that shines is so much brighter. Yeah. And actually it allows, so I cry a lot now in terms of when people ask me these questions, and I make no apology. Right. Because there is something really powerful, and I've realized that my vulnerability is my strength. Yeah. And I'm really against people wearing masks, in terms of, like, because I did it in a corporate existence for over 20 years. I showed up as the person that people expected me to be, with no vulnerability, really. And now I'm like, actually, but if you could recognize and value my vulnerability and yours, yes, the world would be such a beautiful place, and we would do so much together and grow so much that, yeah. And that's connection. It is. Connection. It's what you mentioned earlier about being one of the biggest gifts. We're longing for connection, and you've cracked open, you're cracked wide open to allowing that gift. Thank you, Bep, for sharing that. Now I want to take you, there's so much I want to go into here, but I want to take you back to the moment you heard your husband had cancer. What was that experience like?
you know, from somebody who's never had cancer in the family, to me, it's just, I cannot comprehend what my mind or my body or my emotions would be doing if I was ever told my sister or dear loved one had cancer. So what was the experience for you?
Numbness. I can honestly say there's no way you can really articulate it other than feeling really numb. And in that moment, then looking for strength and looking for a way out of this and looking for the reassurance. And that's why I share that his consultant was incredible, because every consultant is so different. And when I had my diagnosis, it wasn't the same feeling. You know, people just do things very differently, whereas his consultant recognized that this was a really overwhelming piece of news, and he only shared the facts that he felt we could digest in that moment in terms of when treatment was going to start. He really broke it down, but the one thing he did say, and we both really just were clinging on to this, was he said, "I can fix you." And we were like, okay, that's all we need to hear. That is all we need. And I know that was a big statement on his part. Again, I'm sure he's probably not allowed to say anything like that. But it gave us the strength that we then needed to leave his office and walk away thinking we've got this. And mindset is such an important part of any adversity journey. But this one in particular, and in a strange way, I remember when I was then choosing, I went to have a wig fitted for when my treatment was going to start, and I wanted to be prepared. And the hairdresser where I bought my wig was incredible. And she said, "I can normally tell who's going to make it and who isn't." And I was like, "What?" And she said, "Because of the mindset and how they show up." And honestly, that for me was, again, how people take to that situation. So you are going to be flawed, and that is okay. You are going to be numb, and that is okay. And you don't have to accept it in that moment. You don't have to acknowledge it. I know that I sometimes just need to now step away and go and bury my head in something else, and I need to just create some other way, some distraction. I go to distraction, and then I slowly climb back into the, okay, what do I need to face here? And that's the thing I've learned in terms of there's no right or wrong in these situations. I mean, I was crying, I was in bits. My husband actually was incredibly strong, and he surprised himself with this, okay, this is a battle, this is a challenge. How do we rise up to this? Because he's a really empathic soul. And so I was really surprised by him taking the stance here. But it was one of those that I have to say to people that if ever you're in that situation, there's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
Do what you need to do in that moment, and know that it's okay to crumble. It's okay to, to find some level of, just go and distract yourself in some way, and actually also know where to go to ask for help. That probably didn't come for me until a little bit later. But, and this is another one of those opportunities where you think, control the controllables. So let go of what you can't control, but then control the hell out of the controllables. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to I want to have that as a takeaway for the audience. So I'm really hearing the power of resilience, the power of reassurance here.
Yeah.
When people are in shock, often for the bystanders, we can feel a little, what do we do? What do we do? We don't know what to do. We can either sometimes over smother, say the wrong thing. So I just want to really allow the audience to take away, if I have a loved one that's facing something like this, or does face something like this, when they're experiencing shock, what do they need? So they need reassurance.
And do you know what? I almost think, ask them what they need. Because sometimes we do get it wrong, and I know I've got it wrong in the past, and I have wanted to fix it. And I had a lot of that from people around me. Okay, how can we fix this? And how do we not talk about this? And how do we focus on the positive? And all of that stuff is just not helpful. And I've gotten to the place now where I choose who I share trauma with, because I know that there are some people that are going to, all I wanted was for somebody to say, I see you, I hear you, I've got you. What do you need? That is the biggest gift that you could give anybody that's kind of facing that, and the individual that's just heard that news. Because what I realized, and I only realized this when I had my diagnosis, was when I got the news, my first thought was, how can I protect my family? And Jazz said the same. His biggest fear when he got the news was, this is going to impact my family. So you're not even thinking about yourself. And how do I lessen their pain? Yeah. So it's you don't realize that quite often for the patient, they are thinking, oh gosh, I've caused pain to my loved ones.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, that's given me goose pimples. That's given me huge goose pimples. That for me feels like a wake up. And I don't think that's sunk in. That's like a light bulb moment of course. Wow, thank you.
No, my pleasure.
Really feel that. Now, you spoke about vulnerability. You touched on vulnerability earlier. Now, from somebody who's also gone through a huge transformation, and I know the ups and the downs. I know what it's like to be flat on the floor, never thinking you're going to make it back up. One of the things which I've really learned is how much fear we have of connection, and how vulnerable it is. So being able to say to anybody, or even somebody you love, I hear you, I feel you, I see you, what do you need, can maybe be too vulnerable for somebody. So if people are unable to say that because of their own fear, their own vulnerability of stepping into such a space of love, because that's the gift that we're receiving on the other side, is, are we willing to step into that greater love for this person that needs us? And some of us can lean into that, and sometimes we can't. From somebody who's in that position, if there are people around, or they're surrounded by people, the majority, who aren't able to say to them, I hear you, I feel you, I see you, what do you need? Where do you go? What do you do?
I actually got external help. And I can really relate to what that's like, because everybody is feeling their own pain in that situation as well. And some people don't feel able to step up. And also because of sometimes, and I realized it was the role that I've played in, I'm the one that keeps everybody else safe. So when the safe person is not in a safe place, what do you then do? Because people can become reliant on you to play certain roles. And I actually got counselling. So we were really fortunate. And in the Thames Valley, we're so lucky that we have the Thames Hospice. Yeah. And Jazz was receiving some alternative kind of therapies and, a bit of reflexology and things like that through his treatment, but they also offered counselling. And so we both actually individually had that, because I needed somewhere to go because I know I put the mask on when I was going through my treatment because I didn't want other people to feel the pain. So after every chemo treatment, I would make sure that we drove past, or we were driving past anyway, but go to my mum and dad's house, and so my dad could see me, and I would literally walk in going, Dad, it was fine, like it's nothing to worry about, and then I'd go home and collapse. But I needed to do that for him. But where I could go then was to my counsellor, and I could say to her, what if I die? How do I manage this? And when you're facing your mortality, I wanted to explore it. Yeah. It wasn't something that I wanted to, if I had to make some decisions, I wanted to make them consciously, rather than letting something happen to me. I really wanted to be in the driving seat of this part of my life.
Yeah.
And so she was my safe space. And also I suppose I had some friends that really stepped up. But you know, I had a friend that was on maternity leave, but what I could do with her was, we didn't talk about cancer. We talked about other things. And because I don't want to talk about cancer. I don't want to talk about any pain or suffering. I wanted to be Bep. I wanted to be, let's talk about what happened on telly last night, or let's go and have tea and cake. So don't, you know, and that's why I think it's really important to recognize that asking people for what they need. And I think I was quite clear on, I just want to be normal. I wanted normality back. That's what I was craving. And so, yeah, it's, everybody will again react to these things differently, but where you see your loved ones who sometimes you really want to step up and to do that for you are unable to, it hurts. I'm not going to deny that. It really hurts on where you think, I could rely here. Oh no, I can't. And that has shaken me and really had an impact on a lot of these relationships as I move forward as well in my life. But I've also, it angered me, it hurt me. But it's also made me, this is when I think my transformation in terms of this connecting back with myself and finding my own strength and realizing, okay, how can you honor this in yourself? And yes, we need connection and we do need other people. And those people will come to you if I suppose you're clear on what it is that you kind of need. And it's amazing. I mean, I honestly, when I had my diagnosis, my nephew was 6 months old and he became my lifeline. Little does he know how much of a lifeline he became. So don't be surprised where you go for your strength.
Yeah.
You know, so Jazz used to take me every time he saw me feeling a little bit flat and he couldn't fix it and he didn't know how, and he was still recovering from his journey. He'd say, let's go and see my nephew Arian. And so we just used to go there, and all of a sudden children have a way of grounding you. And so just don't be surprised where you go.
Yeah, lovely. This actually connects to a story. I have a good friend who went through so much with a diagnosis of bowel cancer, and he was really faced with that. And as he stepped into really, what can I do for myself here, and claim what it is I need and get clear first on my needs. I can't ask other people to meet these needs until I'm clear on what I need. So he created a group email with friends, family, etc., etc. And there was lots of people on it. Some were close friends, some were acquaintances, but he put them all together because he was afraid of not having his needs met, and he was afraid to ask. So this was a safe way for him to keep everybody updated and then say, I have this need. I'm really clear that right now I'm needing a friend just for fun, or I need somebody to come to the hospital and just be quiet and just sit with me, just hold my hand, don't talk, just let me talk and cry. And he was so clear in what he needed and wanted. And then he would put it out to the email, and it was, okay, I'm okay with putting this out. I'm going to face this and see if anybody comes back to me. And the amount of people that were like, yes, I would love to. Oh my God, that would be such a gift to be able to do that. You've told me really clearly what you need. Oh my God, it's such a joy to be able to give, because often it is lack of clarity and the fear of not being good enough, not being loving enough, or caring enough, or doing the right thing for the person that needs you. We have so much vulnerability tied into that we'd rather not know than actually ask and then wonder if we're going to get it wrong.
And that is the most incredible thing to have done. And like, I take my hat off to him for doing that, because you're right, taking the time to really understand yourself and being at peace with yourself and understanding your needs, and it's okay to ask, and the gift of giving. When I think about how much, and that was my light bulb moment, because culturally we had a challenge in terms of the whole cancer thing as well, because, you know, as an Asian family, when bad things happen, everyone just like hunkers down a little bit, and we don't share, and we don't want to open up, and we don't want to express that something challenging is going on in the family. And so when Jazz had his diagnosis, you know, as two families coming together, everyone was like, okay, let's not tell anyone, like, let's just fix this, which has its advantages as well, in terms of we only had to manage each other's emotions and pain. We didn't have to think about the broader family, so our energy could actually be on Jazz and looking after him in the right way. But then and then we did the same almost again. I told a handful of people when I was going through my journey, and my, you know, kind of immediate close family. But when I was going back to work, I was going back obviously with short hair, and I had taken that year out of work, and I was looking forward to going back and being Bep again, because this was my safe space, and this is where I was, you know, what I knew and where I felt grounded and okay. But I knew obviously I was going to go back looking different, and so I had to face into that. And one of my friends said to me, I really struggle to understand why you don't want to share what's happened, and I don't really understand the cultural impact, but I struggle to understand it. And I said, okay. And we had a conversation, and she said, but what if you could help somebody? And when she said, what if you could help somebody else, that was it, light bulb moment for me. And I just thought, if I can help somebody with this journey and what it feels like, then somebody give me a microphone, because then I'm all over it. And I just thought it was such an important shift for me, which I hadn't acknowledged before. Because what I realized about myself as well is that I don't like sympathy. And so I didn't want sympathy looks from people, or sympathetic anything. I wanted to just be, okay, let's keep going. And now I still got to explore what that is about me, in terms of not wanting people to feel sorry for me. I don't know. That's a pride thing, maybe. I don't know. But there is something about helping others that helped me reshape this whole journey into something so much more powerful, because just because I took the shift away from it being about me. But the more I've explored resilience in the broader context, I know one of the key tools is, when you are stuck with something, is to think about how it can help others. And that's where the gift element comes in, you know. And I just think but also being able to receive. And I love what your friend did in terms of, he allowed himself to receive. And I've really struggled with receiving, and that is still something that I'm working on now, in terms of allowing people to help me and receive. I mean, I receive it with such an open heart, and it you know, it touches my heart every time people do that for me.
Yeah.
But it's still a big part of my journey in terms of receiving. So I always think, okay, I've got to give something in return. Thank you so much.
And that's such a conditioning we have. And we all have that, I think, to an extent. But I also think, being women, culturally, we're so conditioned to be the carer, be the giver, that it can be so alien when suddenly life gives us this twist. And it's, oh my God, my whole modeling, my whole identity is collapsing here. Who I've known myself to be, is structures are falling apart. And so it can be really, really difficult moving from that transition to, I'm the giver, I'm the carer, I'm the lover, to, oh my God, I'm struggling. And I think we also have this real fear. And I think shame is connected here to admitting, I'm struggling. We see that as in, there's something wrong with you if you're struggling, rather than being able to say, hands up, I'm collapsing, I'm struggling, I need help. And that does not make me a bad person. That does not make me good enough or less worthy. This is part of the divine plan. And I think beautifully highlighted as well as one of the spiritual teachings we have, which is sometimes you will be used by God to be the vehicle of growth for others so that they might step up and become who they're meant to become. And sometimes we don't see it's in what's happening to us. We're giving so much. And I always say, if you've been challenged, we're trying to find a way out of the challenge, but in our challenge itself is where people are growing and changing around us. And when we really truly honor, okay, my soul has chosen to take this on as a soul lesson so that I might grow and those might grow around me to a greater source of love. We can find much more peace rather than trying to fix something or fix a problem, fix a disease, which I think we can so disconnect when we try to do that.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, and it's taken me such a long time to get to that place of actually acceptance. And I've realized whatever adversity comes, if I can accept it rather than resist it, I move through it so much quicker.
Yeah. And how do you accept it? What does acceptance mean? So we hear that thrown around so much. Just accept it. Acceptance is the first step. But what did acceptance mean to you when you're challenged with, I've just got married, I've got a huge path, dream ahead of me, a vision, and suddenly within 18 months crash, my husband has been diagnosed with cancer. I've been diagnosed with cancer. My father, my mother, all four of us have a diagnosis of cancer. Now this is the universe really going, knock, 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 knock. It's time for massive change. How do you accept that loss of control to that extent?
Gosh, how do you? And I suppose every one of them took a different degree of acceptance, and at different times, luckily. My dad's one was the most probably interesting because it was a lot late. Well, it was after we were kind of getting ourselves back to normal again, and his diagnosis floored all of us again, I suppose, as a family. But because we knew it wasn't going to end well, so it was very different to what we had to go through. And
so it was that a terminal diagnosis?
Yeah. So he was diagnosed late, and that was definitely the most hardest in terms of how do you make peace with that. And actually, what was interesting in that one was that this is when I really let go of control. And I remember saying quite clearly to my brother and my sister, I'm not leading on this one. I'm not being the big sister on this one. I am actually going to take a step back. I am just going to spend my quality time with Dad, and I want all of us to do what we need to do in this situation so that we have no regrets. So however you want to step up, however you want to get involved or lead in certain ways, and everybody do what they need to do so we don't have those regrets. And that's what we were able to do, actually. And this is when you know the universe works in a beautiful way, because I had literally just taken redundancy from work, didn't know this was happening at this level, had set up my own business, but what it enabled me to then do, and this is again where you realize that you just need to give yourself permission sometimes. And I didn't know how to step away from a new business and still be there like full on 24 hours as much as I could for my dad. And I had a coach at the time who basically said to me, step away from the business. This isn't important right now. And I just needed someone else give me that permission. And now I'm getting better at giving myself that permission. But she was so right, because I can honestly say that by being able to step away with no guilt, with no nothing in terms of other than I just want to love him as much as I can love him for the time that we've got.
Yeah.
And I was able to do. And we had the most precious time. And him, you know, it's not, he had made peace with what was happening. And I think that also helped because he said he was ready to go. And you also realize that actually I needed to make peace with that he was ready. And actually, what I suppose the other interesting aspect I think that helped me, and again, the universe playing it all out, was it, yeah, about 2-3 years prior to this, one of my best friends, so the friend that was on maternity leave, when I had my cancer diagnosis, and we hung out together a lot. After she had her second baby, her husband was diagnosed with bowel cancer. And again, bless him, only at quite an advanced stage. And little did we know when she was supporting me that this is how the story was going to play out. But she ended up losing George in 2016. And I was able to be with her at that time. And she had 2 young boys. And I was with her at the end. And I remember her saying to me at the time, oh, I don't know why you know, it's strange that you were here, because they had moved from being quite close by to being a lot further away, and I had gone to stay with her. And she said, like, there's a reason you were here? And I said, yeah. And neither of us knew what that was at that point. And we both said, yeah, I know. There was something that called me here, and there was something that made me stay that extra night. And when I went through the situation with my dad, we both looked back and went, that was why you were getting ready to be able to say goodbye. And she said goodbye with so much grace that I was like, wow, you've taken the fear of death away from me. I didn't think I'd ever be able to face death in that way. But when you're, you know, being guided, like you said as well, like the universe is just kind of setting you up with these events that floor you, that, you know, that cause a lot of pain. But when you can get to a stage of death doesn't have to be the end, and actually, you know, are we living our lives fully now so that you don't have those regrets? And that's what has made me step up and live my life very differently. And that's why my business is called Thrive 365, which my brother came up with, which was amazing because it really spoke to me. And, you know, and thriving every day doesn't mean that I'm not acknowledging the pain and the uncomfortableness of life. It just means that I choose a way to sometimes just stop, take a step back from the world, be compassionate, you know, do what I need to do for me to then be able to step forward in the next day, the next week, the next month. It's okay. You have to accept what you need in that moment and allow yourself to do what you need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, there's so many takeaways there. So many takeaways that I've heard there. My heart is going, wow, I'm going to have to listen to this replay back several times to really absorb some of those lessons there, because there's a remarkable amount of lessons in what you've been sharing. And it's really important, I think, for the audience to take time to watch this, to not rush watching this, to just perhaps watch part of it at a time, absorb and integrate these lessons. Wow. So what I love, what I'm really hearing as well, is all paths lead back to the heart. All paths lead back to the heart. And yes, the Thrive 365, to me, it just feels really symbolic of a seed when it's planted in the ground. And its purpose is to move up towards the light. And thriving doesn't mean we move up towards the light and nothing is trying to knock us out. There's all sorts of conditions it's going to face. There's all sorts of storms, but our natural innate power, our light, wants to move to the source, wants to move up to the light. And so we're always being directed, and these storms, they will come. And to me, you are such an embodiment of that spiritual teaching. It's not just awareness intellectually, it's something you've been forced to have to experience, to have to understand the depths of that teaching. And you've moved through it. You've had that experience. You've been faced with the biggest spiritual teaching. We always say that only evolved souls would go, hey, I'm coming down to the earth. Give me that lesson. Let me face mortality.
Yeah.
It's a big lesson. I don't like to use the word lesson because it's not a lesson. It's just an experience. Your soul has chosen to experience an aspect of life, an aspect of the human condition. And it takes a hugely evolved soul to raise their hand and say, okay, I am ready to go down to the earth plane, to face that and come through it.
Yeah.
And coming through it, when I say coming through it, does not mean whether we leave the body or not. Coming through it means, will I return to my heart and know I'm light and who I truly am? And to me, you are such an embodiment of that.
Oh, wow. Sometimes I still, I'm like, oh gosh, there's so much more to learn and so much more to grow in, and but I think I'm still very much on that journey. I'm very open to it. I think that's what I don't see adversity now as a pain that floors you. I see it as a pain, because it is painful, that grows you.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that. Not seeing adversity as a problem and seeing it's something that grows you. It reminds me of something which a previous boyfriend said to me, but it hit me so hugely. I was talking about some of my problems and was like, I've got this problem, blah, blah, blah. And he went, Devinda, not a problem, it's a challenge. And I hadn't even considered it being a challenge. So my brain went into freeze. And then, okay, I know that has impacted me, but isn't it a problem? No, it's a challenge. And it really made me realize how mindset is so important, because I was living a reality that we have problems, and he was teaching me, get out of that mindset that there are problems and into the mindset that you are here to find solutions to challenges. Very different way of living. It wasn't until I switched from that way of living, which I realized was very victim based, to empowered living, which is I'm here to find solutions to challenges, and I can do this. And as I start to move on this journey, it's going to get more fun, more interesting, more adventurous, more challenges, but I know I can handle those because there's less resistance. They're not out to get me. They're here to make me grow and expand and evolve and be more and more light. So you've really hit on that. Now,
and I think, sorry, go on.
One thing which I really hear a lot and really feel, and it seems to be a theme with you in particular, which I love, is resilience. So from your perspective, when was the first time you realized, wow, I'm resilient?
I think so. There was, I suppose, when I got divorced, was a time for me to literally, and I think you referred to this earlier, a chance for me to re-explore my identity. you know, especially being an Asian girl, and I was the first girl in my family to actually step up and say, like, or, you know, to think about divorce. And I didn't think I could. This is how incredible my parents were. You know, I had chosen my husband. It wasn't like it was an arranged marriage. And so I had made my bed, and I had the mindset that I've made my bed, I've got to lie in it. There is no way out of this, even though it was painful from the word, not physically, but emotionally painful from the word go. And so, you know, there were just so many things that made me question who I was and who I wanted to be, but I didn't see a way out. But I knew I was trying everything, and it was only when my parents saw how hard I was trying that after about 8 years they said, look, this can't go on anymore. So they were incredible at giving me the support and the encouragement to say, no, let's step away from this. And when I did that, I had to redefine who I was, because I didn't know then, because now I was a divorced daughter of a couple who were incredible and who had always worked so hard. And, you know, and so I felt that guilt, I felt that shame, I felt I had failure stamped on my forehead. And
was that impacted by you being from the Asian culture?
Yeah, I think so. Although having spoken to other people who are, you know, not from the Asian culture, divorce has that concept, I suppose, of I failed at something that I think other people succeed at. But obviously there's so much that goes on in different relationships that we're never aware of. And so there was definitely something about who I now was and how I was going to step forward and what was my life now going to be like. And I remember at the time my parents did say to me, okay, well, move back in with us. And I did actually resist, and I did say, no, I want obviously to be a big part of your lives, and but I'll live around the corner from you. So I got myself a flat, and I think I realized very quickly then, and again with the help of a life coach, so she was the one at the time who, and again, universe presenting an opportunity. I hadn't thought about life coaching, but all of a sudden there was a sign, so I followed it. She helped me recognize what my values were, and I didn't know what they were. This was me in my early 30s, had no idea what my values were, living my life in accordance to what everybody else kind of expected, fulfilling the roles that everyone else was expecting of me. Never thought about what I actually wanted. And so recognizing my values, but also having, you know, when we explored things like how will I afford my mortgage, like because I'm not currently delivering at work because I'm struggling with this divorce and the emotional impact of that. So work was tough for me, but I knew, like, so when we really explored these themes, she said, well, how will you? And I was like, oh, I'll just go and get a second job. Like, I can do that. I can go and stack shelves. I can do whatever it takes. I know that I'm more than capable. And she helped me really recognize that I would always find a way through.
Yes.
I don't turn to other people. There's that independent streak that my dad planted in me at a very early age. And so I know that I will always, find a way through. Yeah.
Good. And it's surprising. It makes me feel we live in a very sophisticated society in so many ways, and yet it's few and far between that get to the point where they will wake up and say or ask themselves, what are my values? And it's so huge. Our whole model of reality is created around our values, and it takes bombs sometimes for us to wake up out of the reality we're living to realize this is a reality that's been passed down to me by society, my parents, my ancestors, my conditioning. This is not the life or the model of reality I would choose to be living. And for many of us, even when we wake up to that, it's scary as hell to actually then have to go, I now, because we call this what part of the awakening process, you wake up, you've been thrown a bomb, life's woken you up from being your conditioning to wanting to crack open and break free from that conditioning, to lose your identity on who you thought you were, to then stepping into, wow, now I'm responsible, I'm fully responsible for what happens in my life, and what I create in my life moving forwards, which means I have to be the leader and the one who's got hold of the steering wheel. And for women, in many cases, that is not something that we have been conditioned with from birth. We've been conditioned to be completely receptive and not all overly yang. And this is really allowing the divine feminine to come in, which I talk a lot about, but that is something which you're really touching on here with a lot of your messaging. That comes from that divine feminine energy of, I'm not powerless, I'm not a victim, I'm neither overly yang and controlling and thinking I have to be a man to survive in this world. I know by being who I am, being feminine, being in my heart, I'm still strong, and I will still cope and make the choices and decisions I need to, and have faith and self-belief that I can get myself through life.
And just knowing, you know, so much of this is about allowing yourself to say no. And that's been a massive thing for me in terms of this part of the journey. You know, the fact that I was able to say to my parents, no, I'm not going to come and live with you, because freedom is one of my core values. And although I think you're amazing, I know my freedom will be compromised. And so it's being able to say no. And
what do you face by saying no? Why do you think, oh, you're just frozen. You froze a bit there. Why do you think we can be so afraid to say no?
Fear of upsetting others, fear of, if I'm saying no to this, what am I saying yes to, which might mean that I need to step up even more. And do I have the courage to do that?
Yes, I resonate so deeply with that one.
And that's, I'm still on that journey. And, you know, at times my voice becomes louder on the no. But I now know that there is, every time I say yes to somebody else, I'm saying no to myself. And I have to be at peace with that. So if I'm not at peace with that, then I need to learn to say no, which means I'm saying yes to me.
Can you say that again? When I say
yes to somebody else, it means that I'm saying no to myself. And that is okay if you're at peace with whatever that no means for you. But if it means that you're compromising yourself in any way, then I've learned the power of my no now. And that's been really big for me and my resilience.
Wow. I love that. There's so much power in that, in no. And this is something which I'm still learning to be much more conscious of. And I think it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. Gabor Mate has written an incredible book. What's it called? When Your Body Says No. And his theory is majority of disease, disharmony, disconnection in life is our lack of ability to say no. And if we could just solve this one problem, we would be back to a connected state of being. And I truly am seeing that really clearly. And it takes huge courage to say no. Now, one of the things you mentioned earlier, I really felt it. So in reference to your cancer, I mean, it's such an incredible story. I think there's still a part of me that's just, how can somebody go through so much cancer in such a short space of time? It just feels so extreme. So of course it would be a wake-up call, but what does that mean, and how so was that a wake-up call to somebody who's going, you know, I have cancer, I'm down on my knees, I'm suffering, I'm challenging, you know, why do I need to be woken up? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I think for me, the wake up call element of it was that I mattered and my needs matter, and me taking control of who I am and how I step forward. That is what matters. And I remember saying this to my husband, and I've said it to other people since, that if he'd have been the only one in our relationship that had cancer, I would have put him on a pedestal for the rest of his life, because I would not have known my worth or my value. I would have just been in this moment of serving, of looking after him. He had been impacted. And I really felt at the time, because I couldn't, somebody asked me this question a little while ago in terms of, every time something like this has happened to you, have you said, why me? And I said, and I maybe I did at that stage, but now I'm at the why not me, in terms of all of these challenges have come to grow me. And so yes, I don't accept all of them with open arms, but it is a case of, and you know, and that cancer in 2013 was, well, superseded by a cancer I had literally last year after my dad died. So in 2019 I had a second cancer that's not related to my first one. And yes, I've gotten up a lot quicker. But again, I'm not quite sure on what that lesson is, other than like what you mentioned before, this dis-ease in my body, the grief, you know, another opportunity for me to stop and pause and reflect, because nothing was going to make me stop. I think I was on this trajectory of running away from my grief, throwing myself into the business, trying to do everything I could, until having to have a hysterectomy, you know, for endometrial cancer. That physically made me stop. And I knew that, like you said, my body had to stop, my mind had to stop, my heart had to nurture and nourish. And I know I'm still on this journey of recovery, but there is still something in one of the biggest lessons I think through all of that was, and this is a key component for me now in resilience, is self-compassion, and how much we need to give that to ourselves. So even though I thought I was doing a good job of looking after myself after my first cancer, it's just gone up a whole nother few levels in terms of this cancer, in terms of no, Bep, you've still got so much to learn on self-compassion.
Yeah, wonderful. Now, I know you do a lot of work when you're working with your clients on a one-to-one basis in reference to mindset, and how important our mindset is, nurturing our mind, creating a healthy mind, but looking at some of our beliefs, our thoughts, our conditioning, our programming. And I love the one you just highlighted, because I use that a lot as well, which is the why me. And it's my habit when I first started that was, why me would always be from a place of victim. And my coach would always say to me, right, no, that's not what I meant. Why does why me have to come from a place of victim? I'm asking you, why me? Not from a place of victim. Start again, fill that page with why me. And out would pour this, the compassion I'm learning for myself, the fear that I'm facing walking into being more love, the fear that I'm facing receiving more love, the juiciness of connection. And it just put a completely different spin. And so I used to have that stuck up on my wall, and whenever my programming is so to go back into victim, back into victim, and each
Yeah.
time back into why me. I go, right, why me? That's why.
No, I love it. I love it. And that I'm going to take that away as something that I will go away and fill, I don't know, probably a book with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was gobsmacked. I thought I would
Mm,
really struggle. But the moment I got into this flow, I literally was pouring my
yeah.
eyes and my heart out with just thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for having put me on the floor, for having caused me
Yeah.
what I thought was pain and heartbreak and hurting me, and me being full of rage and anger. And actually, I can see you were only loving me, God. You were only loving me.
Yeah.
That's all you were giving me. You were just loving me. And it was just incredible with how much I managed
Yeah.
to fill that page up with why me. And it's like, why me? Oh my God, am I worthy? And when I really saw it, it was when I looked at that
Mm,
page, this is your worth. This is why you're scared or seeing this. Why you, when you spin that round and really see from your third eye, a clearer perspective, a higher vision,
yeah.
you'll see how much you're loved, how much how much you're valued. And it was
Yeah.
like, to receive what was written on that page, I had to truly believe I was worthy of receiving unconditional love. I was
Mm,
worthy of compassion. I was worthy of receiving everything. And
mm.
that's what's so scary. So you've really highlighted that. So thank you.
No, my pleasure. I'm definitely going to do that exercise.
Absolutely great. So cautious of time. So we're gonna
Sure. Yeah,
just
yeah,
we're gonna spin up.
yeah.
So what I've got so many questions here I want to ask you, and I just think, okay, what are some of the really key things? So, what advice, if you were to give any advice to others on how they themselves can grow through adversity, through challenge, what are your golden nuggets?
Okay, so I suppose they will be. So I've got my little 5 to thrive thing that I often talk to my clients about. And one of them is like taking that first step to acknowledgement and acceptance of the situation. And that doesn't mean that you have to fully be okay with it, but at least acknowledge what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Once we acknowledge it, we can face it. And so there is an element of, okay, this is actually happening. So what do I need to face about it? And then my number 2 is, this is the bit where you do the control, and then what's in your control and what isn't in your control. And the biggest part of being in control is, again, your mindset and how you frame, how you can, what elements are, you can think, what, what rewiring you might want to do, in terms of how you can have a thought program that helps you, that empowers you, rather than, paralyzes you. So the control and the not control. Then my number 3 is actually really find your sunshine, no matter what the moment is, and no matter how much it floors you. And that will be either through people, that will be podcasts, that will be whatever you need, again, to fill your mind with what you need to fill it with at that time to help you. But finding and surrounding yourself, a big one for me at that stage is my tribe. So who I reach out to, who I say, this is where I'm struggling, this is where I need help. But surrounding yourself with the right people is critical through any element of adversity, and just being very mindful of that. Then number 4 is, what is the gift, in terms of really stopping. And again, this can take place much later. This doesn't have to be within a month of your adversity or your challenge. And be okay with just letting that come to you when the time is right. And so what is the gift in this, and being open to that. And the number 5 is what now. And for me, the what now is very much, how can I now use what I've been through to help others? Or how do I change? What are my new rules for my life? What am I? This is where I might say no. This is where I might say yes. How do I grow? How have I grown through this, in terms of how my life has now had to pivot and move forward? So it's having the courage to really take this forward whatever the lesson is, and embed it into your life, integrate it into your life, so that you have grown through the experience.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant tips, and that makes it really, really clear. I like the way that's structured and organized. Brilliant. So we'll see if we can find a way of sharing that with viewers
sure.
as well.
Of course.
How much do you feel your emotions impacted you through this process? Were you able to use your emotions in a positive way, or do you feel there's a lack of understanding and awareness of what to do with emotions, and are they playing a part in how you heal, transform, and step forwards?
Yeah, massively. So much so that I'm doing an emotional resilience course at the moment, where we use our emotions with, or we help children, and obviously adults really need this as well, using the power of your emotions. So with children, we refer to them as your superpowers. Every single emotion is here to serve a purpose. Every single emotion is here to tell you something. And if we recognize them and don't push them away because they're uncomfortable, then again, we can just get through them so much quicker. So every single one of those emotions, anger, fear, fear was a big one through any one of these challenges, in terms of, I don't know how to do this. But then when you start dialing up the courage, the love, the compassion, you become so much more resourceful. And so now when something hits, I'm very aware of, okay, fear's here right now, and what is it that I'm scared of? And actually, how can my compassion help in this situation? What is it that I need to take a step back from, or a step towards? And then joy is my number one emotion that I find a way to tap into her. She's a girl. And she, you know, when I need joy to enable me to step forward, and to be at peace with the situation, then she comes forward, and I like to connect with her in that way. But also compassion is another really critical emotion for me, in terms of all of the different situations that I've been through. And I just think, compassion for me starts with compassion for self.
Yeah. And is there a specific tool that you use to help you really embody a specific state? So let's say somebody wants to go, "Oh, I'd love to feel joy," or "I would love to feel peace." What, in this moment right now, I'm experiencing the opposite. What can I do? Or do you have a quick go-to tool which helps you make that switch? Is it maybe visualization or drawing? You've obviously got an identity there of joy you've created. She's a she, which I love, which I'm going to take away.
And there is something that through my NLP training I've done with anchoring.
Yes.
And so, and like you said, there is a visualization. So when I did my coaching training, I created an inner guide, and she is a very content, composed, graceful version of me. And she's the one that sometimes when I really need that strength, I have to step into her. And so there are so many tools out there available to help you identify with that version of yourself that knows how to make these decisions. And I also, I did it with my coaching training, but also when after my divorce, that was when that was one of the best tools that she ever gave me. We did a visualization where I connected with my higher self.
Yeah.
And so this inner guide, and I know you do a lot of this work as well, and I just think it's the most powerful embodiment of the best parts of me, and also the most vulnerable parts of me, but the parts that sometimes I need to step into to move forwards.
Yes, beautiful. Good. Okay, so if you were to give your younger self couple of tips or advice,
Yeah.
where you're standing now, what would they be?
They would be hold on tight, because it's going to be one hell of a ride. But you are so loved. You are so enough. Your courage and compassion will come through, and the light, when you connect with that part of you, shines so bright. So never feel you have to dim it. Shine it, and shine it, you know, as vibrantly as you can, because I know I felt I've always had to dim my light, and now I'm really stepping into this. No, let's just keep shining.
And giving permission for all
Yes.
us women to do the same.
Yeah.
And so beautifully, without the masks, or
Yeah.
well, it's a journey. The mask doesn't come off overnight. It's a gradual moving into more and more authenticity. Authenticity doesn't come overnight.
No.
It's a gradual, but knowing we are moving forwards, we are stepping forwards, and having that love and compassion to be where we're at. So thank you for giving all of us permission to take down our masks, be with our emotions, be with our fears, speak openly, and know they're making that makes such a big difference. Hearing your story, hearing your messages, hearing your words of wisdom have just totally expanded my heart today. And I know I'm going to have the most wonderful day, because it's such a deep connection for my soul and for the audience as well, because we do feel you, we see you, and we hear you. And we want you to know you matter.
Thank you.
You've made a difference. So
thank you. No, I'm so touched, and I know you've been such an important part of this journey for me. So thank you so much for all of the growth that you have enabled. And I just think having this sisterhood, having this tribe where we all get to grow together and know we're in a safe space, these are the tools that are enabling me to continue to grow and shine the light. And I know that they've come at the time that I've needed them the most. So thank you.
My pleasure. It's my joy to see everybody lighting up. So I've got a few off the wall questions before we finish. Okay, so if you could ask anybody in the world one question and they could not lie, they had to tell you the complete truth, who would it be?
Oh gosh. I've always admired, and I think it's the selflessness, and actually, but somebody like Nelson Mandela, actually, in terms of how much he had to use the power of his mind to get through the situation that he was in, and actually having the courage to do that and know that there was another way. And having the ability to do that, I'm so in, admiration of him for that.
Yeah, like it. Great question. Who is your greatest female role model and why?
Actually, Maya Angelou. I love Maya Angelou, and actually, I love her quote about surviving v thriving, and I've got it on a whole load of my on my website and everything, because I just think, Maya, like, stand up tall, be bold, like, learn from all of the horribleness that's happened and everything like that, but always find that gift in terms of how you thrive.
Yes, absolutely. I love her poem, I Am a Lady.
Yes.
If you could eradicate one problem in today's society, what would it be and why?
Oh, any level of prejudice, any level of thinking that we are different. We are all connected. We are all one. And I know that there's a lot of pain and suffering out there. And I just want us all to connect and to help heal that pain. So any level of difference that people think makes them better, I'm just, no, that doesn't work for me. So I know at the moment it's really topical with race And I'm so passionate about us seeing each other as brothers and sisters and all coming together as one. And so, yeah, anything that makes anybody feel that they're different is, yeah, let's get rid of that.
Absolutely beautifully said, soul sister. I absolutely adore that one. Really love that. It's bridging separation, bridging that gap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, actually, just building on that, if we feel we don't know something about living in another way or in another culture, then don't be ignorant to it, but find the way to educate yourself and learn. And I am on that journey. I am learning and I'm growing, and I'm really open to learning and growing. So it's that taking responsibility for yourself as well, to think, I don't understand, so actually I'm going to ask some questions and I'm going to learn and grow.
Good. Brilliant. Okay, so lastly, what 3 things do you most want for all women?
Oh, wow. Self-compassion is my first and foremost one thing that I wish we would allow ourselves to be kind to ourselves, and to receive love, to really feel that you can receive love and you deserve it. And I want every woman out there to know that she matters. And it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to ask for help. Together, when we take the masks off and we can be vulnerable, then it allows, and it just gives permission to other people to do that as well. And just that kindred spirit again of us all being connected and one, and helping each other to grow and live our best life. That's what I want for all women.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Again, beautifully said. And again, audience, remember, when we commit to wanting this for other women, we're also setting that intention and that commitment to want it for ourselves as well. So want. It's okay to want.
Yes, it is. It so is.
Lovely. Okay, it's been an honor connecting and speaking with you today. So I'm sure there's going to be lots of people who will want to connect with you, who you've touched, who resonate with you. How can they reach out to you? How can they connect with you? What's the next step?
Okay, so my social media platforms, I've got a Thrive Bep on Instagram, so please follow me on Instagram. On Facebook, I've got a Thrive 365 page, which I'm not overly active on, but I will get more active on it. But again, at the moment, it's just a real feel good kind of things that resonate with me. I just keep posting on there. And then, if I can help anybody move through adversity, or from a place where they're feeling stuck and not in alignment with their own identity, and feeling like they're always doing things for other people and they've lost that connection with themselves, then I am creating a program at the moment where I'm going to help people move through that, so that they have got that alignment and that they can integrate that into their lives. So one-to-one coaching, or even this program, then please just get in touch with me through any of those means.
Sounds fabulous. Do you have a website?
I do. It's www.thrive365.co.uk.
Lovely. So please do go over to Bep's website. Do stay connected with her, because I totally know from experience, Bep has so much wisdom and to share. And as you've already gathered, she is a gorgeous, courageous, resilient human being that is so authentic and real as well. So reach out.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much.
Lovely. Is there anything you would like to complete on?
Actually, the quote that I came up with, and again, I love when you reminded me that was probably a higher self intervention. I came up with a quote when I did my NLP training over 10 years ago, and it was, be who you owe it to yourself to be.
Yeah, I'm letting that sink in. I loved hearing that from you, and it's just, I've been using that as one of my mantras as I get up in the morning, and I've been just hearing my mind is starting to say it naturally. And when I go to do something which I do think is, in actual fact, it's me going, I'm going to find a quick way to do this, and I'm not fully present in my heart, I hear that. Be who you owe it to yourself to be. And it's like, oh, I can't send that out now.
Oh, bless.
It's great because it holds you to accountability. And I think that's why I really love it so much. It's, wow, I'm really having to be accountable to that now. So it's massively powerful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely. So thank you, viewers. Thank you for joining us here at Fierce Focus Feminine. And again, a reminder, if any of you would like to join our incredible community of fiercely heart-centered women, soulful women, we would love to invite you into our space, into our hearts, and help you grow, heal, transform as well. So do join us, and I will look forward to connecting with you all again next month with our next interview. Lots of love. Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.